Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another week of Porch Talk. As you can see, I'm on my own today. Danielle is in a beautiful place on vacation, and I'm so excited. She's enjoying her family, and what a wonderful time. She just needed to get away and rest. And she was telling me this morning, she's been getting up every morning and going on hikes. So her and Shane, her husband. And so I'm so happy for her, but I miss her this morning. But I know we're going to have an amazing morning. And I know I love this verse. I say it a lot on Porch Talk, but it is the truth. This is the day the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I'm telling you, I got up this morning rejoicing because yesterday I woke up and I couldn't walk. My back had gone out just getting out of bed. And today I am completely healed and I am rejoicing and that I have a good Father, that he takes care of his baby girls and boys. And so his sons and his daughters. And so I am just excited about today. And so we're gonna start out. I want to introduce our guest today. She's very precious to me. I love her dearly. She's like a daughter to me and my husband. And So her name is Victoria Pierce, and we are going to bring her on this morning. Good morning, Victoria.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be here today.
Yes, we are so happy to have you on this morning, and I've been looking forward to this week, and so we're just going to jump right on in and just start with this. And so let's just start talking. Can you give us a little bit of the background of how your home life was growing up?
I went through very severe abuse, physical, mental, emotional, sexual, spiritual abuse, from before I can remember until I was able to walk away. I went through, I had multiple people that had abused me. Even I had two teachers that sexually abused me in school. And my grandparents did child pornography. And so I went through trafficking. Like my dad trafficked me as a little girl. So I went through some pretty crazy, horrible stuff that people should never have to go through, especially a child.
Yes. And I know that you felt like you didn't have a voice.
I did not have a voice. That's right. I really didn't. There were a couple of times that I would want to talk and would want to tell and would kind of try to make a move in that direction. And one time I told my parents, I don't want to stay home with my older sibling. And they were like, why not? I said, well, she's mean. Well, how is she mean? Well, she's just mean. And they turned to her and said, well, be nice. And then they left and I got beat up and was told, see, they know and they don't care. So, so I felt like in that moment that I had told, only knowing now what I said wasn't really a telling. But yeah.
So bullying was something that you dealt with even at school. Can you talk about how you were bullied at school?
Well, I was the big fat kid. And so my nickname was Fatso Vicky Pierce Steers. I don't think it was like that in kindergarten, but first grade through all the way through middle school, I was severely targeted and bullied. It was always weird though, because the kids that would be mean to me, every once in a while they'd switch and come and be nice. Especially when I was younger, they'd come and play with me and stuff and start to be my friend, and I would always be excited about that. Finally, and then they would tell me some horrible thing that they were dealing with, and I'd kind of love them through that and kind of be a friend to them through that situation. And they would play with me and be nice and stuff for a little while, but then it would just switch back to them being mean and calling, running away from me and ditching me and making fun of me and all of that. So I went through bullying when I didn't even know there was a term called bullying.
Well, but I love when we were talking about all this. I loved how you were saying that there were teachers. It's like God put these people in your life, these teachers that wanted to try to reach out and help.
There was one two. My kindergarten teacher, by that point in my life, I was already very severely broken. And already, with the amount and the types of abuse that I went through, my soul was shattered into pieces. And in the psychology world, that would be called dissociative identity disorder now, or multiple personality disorder before. And even in kindergarten, I had different parts of me that would, try to help me cope with life because of the things that I was going through at home. And my kindergarten teacher was the only person that, she'd say, "Hey, Victoria," and I'd be like, "I'm not Victoria today, I'm so-and-so." And so then she would just kind of go right along with it. And she was my favorite teacher. I don't even remember her name, but I know I always felt safe with her and felt loved by her. And then in 8th grade, there was a lot of really traumatic things happening and going on in my world. And I was severely flunking my math class. And my teacher reached out to me, told them she would pass me with a D- if I went every day after school for the last quarter of the year kind of thing. And so my parents made me do that. And one day, she was always trying to probe and ask me questions, and I would never open up, because I wasn't allowed to. I learned what happened if I tried to tell, and so she was, I just broke down and was just a sobbing, crying mess one day, and she was crying right along with me. She didn't know what to do, but she was married to the counselor of the 8th grade counselor. And she asked me, she said, "Well, if he asks you to come in, will you go see him?" Well, she said, "Have you gone to see him?" And I said, "No, I can't do that." And she said, "Well, if he invites you in, will you go?" And I said, "Yes." So I walked away, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to hear from him, and I never did. So I never had that opportunity to tell.
But I just love that, all throughout your life, and we'll see it as we go a little bit further, that God always puts somebody there to watch out over you.
Yeah.
Well, after you graduated high school, you moved away to go to college. Can you talk about what happened with your grandmother during that time, and just kind of what you had to walk through with that?
Well, she had a brain aneurysm and had surgery, and woke up, knew she'd had that, and then she went into a coma for a month. And I was actually away. I was actually at home, not at college when that happened, but she was near where I went to college when that happened. And so when I got back to college, she had, I got back, and then she had come out of the coma. She went home. She was very weak. I was 24 years old, and I ended up being the person in the family that was making all of the medical decisions for her, because of what I was going to school for, and because it was medical related, and somehow that made me a doctor at 24. So all of my aunts and my dad were looking at me to make those medical decisions for her and tell them what to do. And she had gotten out of the hospital, and she was out for about a week, and she went to go back in for some final doctor visits, and she was super, super weak. She fell, she hit her head on the car next to them, dented the car. That's how hard she fell, and made her brain bleed again in a different spot. So she went through surgery, woke up, and then went into a coma again. And it was really during that time that I was really making those decisions. I was flunking out of school. I was about to lose my job because she was so close. She was so right on the edge as to whether she was going to live another day or not. And so I was putting her through all of this stuff, trying to keep her alive. And about 3 weeks into it, one of my aunts let it slip that my grandma did not want any of that. So I'd been putting her through all of that because I didn't know that's not what she wanted. So when I found out, I kind of hit the roof with my aunt. And, I was just like, how dare you? How dare you do that? That is not her wishes. Well, I didn't want to let her go. Well, I understand that. I don't want to let her go either. However, you knew her wishes and you did not tell me those things. You have made me put her through hell. I'm done. I called all my aunts. I called my dad. I said, I don't know how many of you are aware of this. I just found out about it. I will not continue to do this to her since that was not her wish. If you guys are going to do it, that is on you. I'm done. You all need to decide what you're going to do, and I'm done. And so they all talked and figured out, oh, well, really, we can't be doing this or shouldn't be doing this to her since that wasn't her wishes. And so they agreed to stop doing all of the things to her that was going on, heroic measures and things. And so she got so close, like her oxygen levels dropped down. I mean, if your oxygen levels drop below like 93, the medical staff starts freaking out because that's not good. Your brain can't go without oxygen. My grandma, hers dropped down into the 80s, down into the 40s, down into the 20s, down into the teens. And that whole process was about 20 hours worth of below that 93 level. And then all of a sudden, and I kept trying to prepare my family. This is the end. She's, blah, blah, blah. You're trying to prepare them. And then all of a sudden it jumped right back up to 98%. And then I had to go to work one day because I was losing my job. And I called to check in on her. And one of my other aunts said, hey, there's somebody here that wants to talk to you. And she didn't, she handed the phone away. And I'm like, who am I going to be faced with on the other end of this phone? Right. And I hear my grandma say, hi, Victoria, I love you. And I'm standing in the middle of my break room at work, and I screamed and said, I'm on my way, because I had learned that had a previous experience where somebody in a situation like that had woke up and I thought everything was going to be fine, and within 24 hours they were gone. So I thought, oh my gosh, I need to get there now. So I left my job and went and got to see her and spend time with her. She lived for a week, and when her oxygen level came back up, my aunts were like, see, she's going to be fine. I said, she's going to probably have some pretty severe damage going on here because of how long her brain went without oxygen. You can't do that. but she's very stubborn. And she woke up and she got to say goodbye to everybody she wanted to, all of her kids and her brothers, and everybody that she wanted to be able to say goodbye to, she did. And so that week I was with her the whole time, off and on, and I got to feed her. And the day before she passed away, I had to leave, and I was standing at the foot of her bed, and I went to pick up my backpack, and she'd been in a coma now for basically 2 months. A month, she was okay, a week, late, alert and awake for a week, and then another month of a coma. Wow. And so she was really hard to understand when she talked because her tongue was swollen and stuff. So I had my back to her, and I bent over to pick up my backpack to go to school, and she said, as clear as I'd ever heard her say, "Thank you, Victoria, for everything you've done for me." And I just froze with my back to her, and I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to see my grandma again. I pulled myself together. I turned around and I said, "Grandma, I wouldn't have it any other way." And she said, "I know, and I appreciate that. Thank you." And I walked out and I cried the whole way to my car, and just really had thought, okay, I'm walking away. I'm never going to see her again. And she was there one more day, but she was not very alert and responsive that last day. But she gave me an incredible gift by telling me, by thanking me for what I had done for her. So it was pretty amazing.
Yes, it's kind of like the one that she spoke a lot of life into you that day.
Yeah.
Because of her telling you, giving you her approval and how much she loved you. That's such a neat thing to have that. Well, yeah. I want to talk about going back to your family, about your niece and nephew, that you had found out about them, that they had been taken from your sister because of abuse, and you realized it was the same abuse that you had growing up. So you reached out.
I found they were still with her, and I found out some stuff that she had done to them.
Oh, okay.
And through that process, when I found out what she was doing to them, I thought, oh my God, what else has she done to them that she did to me? So sorry.
I definitely want to get it right, because you reached out and were able to get them some help.
Yes, them being removed from her care was outside of my doing. However, it needed to happen. What had happened is one of their preschool teachers had seen, found out that my nephew was left home alone. And so she, as a teacher, she was a mandated reporter. So she was required to report that, but rather than calling the authorities first, she called me. So my mom was actually able to go pick him up before the authorities got involved. So that way the kids were able to stay with my parents and me through that process. But I mean, when the authorities reached out to me and stuff, I told them what they had told me, what they had told me, and him being left home alone was all in the same day. So it just happened really, really fast. That they were removed from her care. And, I thought maybe it would be a good thing for them to be placed in my parents' care, but they kind of, yeah.
Well, but I love how God worked, and she knew who to call.
Yeah.
That teacher knew who to call. She called you.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know how she found my phone number or anything, because I knew of her, but I didn't know her. So it was really pretty interesting.
Yes. I totally believe God He directs all of our stuff. He puts everything in place. It was those little divine little movement kisses. He just amazes me how he puts things together.
Yeah, it was through that experience that actually started my healing journey, because I knew the kids needed to get into counseling and get help and things like that. And that is actually where I started my healing journey, was trying to get help for them.
See, that's so good. See, I just love that. But we were talking, and you were saying it when you were 24 years old. You went to church with your aunt and uncle, and you made a decision, but you didn't realize you didn't really know what the decision was. You were quite confused. So can you talk about that?
In front of all these people. Yes. No, I joke and I say I was saved by accident, because I literally had no clue what I was doing. It was through it was through the process of, after my niece and nephew had been removed from my sister for 3 years, they were given back to her, and she had not changed. She had not gotten any help, and I was devastated. And so I'd gone to church with my aunt and uncle, and I sobbed through the whole service. And, she was like, well, do you want to go talk to the pastor? And I said, okay. So we went back into the pastor's office after service was over. His office was at the back of the sanctuary. And we went in and talked, and I guess he said, hey, do you want to pray? And I said, sure, why not, I guess, and I had no idea what he was doing. So he led me through the sinner's prayer, and my aunt was sobbing, like ugly cry, Kleenex everywhere, crying like crazy. And I kept looking at her like, what is wrong with you? And we left, and she's like, you have to call grandma and your dad and tell them you went forward at church today. And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't go forward anywhere. I went back into the pastor's office. Like, what is wrong with you? And so I finally was like, if you want grandma to know, you can call her, because I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, I don't know what I just did. I don't know what's wrong with you. You're kind of freaking me out a little bit here. So she calls my grandma, and Victoria went forward at church today. And then she's like, grandma wants to talk to you. So I was like, hi, grandma. And now she's crying and sobbing as much as my aunt is. I'm so happy. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong with you guys. Don't get this at all. So she tells me, you need to call your dad and tell him. And I'm like, what am I supposed to say? Tell him you went forward at church today. So I called him, and it's like, Dad, I'm supposed to tell you I went forward at church today. He went, huh, really? I said, yep. I said, do you know what that means? He said, yes. I said, can you tell me? Because I didn't go forward anywhere. I went back into the pastor's office. Like, I don't not know what's going on with these people. And so he said, well, basically, that means that you asked Jesus into your heart. I went, oh, I guess that means I should start going to church I guess I need to find my own church. And I had no clue what to do or how to do it. So there had been a commercial on TV, a church commercial. And I was like, maybe I'll go there. That commercial always seems nice. So that started my church journey, sort of. But, I went to church and had no clue, nothing. Like, I walked in, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I had no clue about what they were saying. Growing up, my grandma took me to church a couple times, but it was always a miserable experience, because she'd make me go to Sunday school, and I didn't fit in because I was the big fat kid. I didn't know anybody. And then they were talking about this Jesus Christ, like it was something that you said other than when you were mad, and they're telling weird stories about people living in a belly of a fish. Like, who could do that? So that was my background. And then when I'd go into church, if I sneezed or coughed, I got slapped and was told to shut up. Well, my sister and an aunt that was close in age to my sister would make a bunch of noise, throw things, giggle, talk, laugh. And if I sneezed, I got slapped and told to shut up. Meanwhile, they're hooligans in the back of the church, you know. But I now know that my grandma's hope with that and why she was doing that was because she was trying to get me saved. But it didn't feel like that while I was there. It was a miserable experience. So, and I'd only gone a few times with that. So I literally had no experience. And I kind of fell through the cracks there because it was a mega church. Nobody knew to come disciple me. Nobody rallied around me to show me the ropes, nothing. But from that point on, all the decisions that I made, like, okay, I need to get into counseling. I need to get some help, you know. So I was like, well, I guess I should go to a Christian counselor, you know, because now I guess I'm a Christian, whatever that means. And so I did. And it ended up being a very life-changing experience.
That's so awesome. Well, can you, so at some point you walked through a emotional breakdown, and you went to the hospital, and the doctors spoke and said, this is what your future looks like. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was after my grandma had passed away. I was already really, really struggling before then. And then after she passed away, just the stress and everything of all that. Plus, you know, I was starting to have flashbacks and memories and stuff from all the abuse. And like I said, I already had dissociative identity disorder from early childhood. And it was all starting to boil up and out and over. It was a couple of months, I think, after my grandma had passed away, I was really, really struggling with depression. I couldn't get out of bed. I ended up losing my job. I ended up flunking out of school. I had an episode with cutting, and I went into the hospital for the first time. I had already been cutting and stuff like that, but this was severe enough that it landed me in the hospital. And I got out, and I was out for a week, and in the hospital, they were like, what do you need? And I was like, I need some support. I need to go home, try to get my feet on the ground. And so they encouraged me to do that. So I called my parents and asked if I could come home, and they told me no. And, you know, like, I have always been dead set against suicide. Okay. Like, that has always been my stance. This is not an option, etc. And after I got into a fight with my parents, hung up the phone, I sat up, I saw a bottle of pills. And then the next thing I know, I'm holding the empty pill bottle. I don't remember taking them because I would never do anything like that, you know? And so I sat there, and long story short, a different personality had come out and taken the pills. But then I literally had no recollection of doing it. But there I am sitting there with an empty pill bottle going, that did not just happen. I put the pill bottle down, and I tried to pretend that did not happen. And I tried to distract myself. I went and got on my computer and tried to play some computer games. Did fine until the medicine started kicking in. And long story short, well, the Lord, he's so amazing. Like, he was not going to leave me in that place because he created me with a plan and a purpose, and it was for good things. So, meanwhile, I'm trying to pretend that didn't happen, and he's got everything lined up to get me help. And my roommate and I came out of our rooms at the same time, which never, ever, ever happened. And she went into the bathroom. I tried to avoid her, and I went into the kitchen waiting for her to go back to her room so I could just go lay down and go to sleep and pretend that never happened. Well, she came into the kitchen and I was like, what are you doing? You don't ever do this. You never come out of your room. And so we're standing in the kitchen and I tried to walk out of the kitchen and I literally at the door frame, there had to be an angel standing there because I literally bounced off. I didn't touch the door jamb, but hit something, bounced off and like stood back against the counter and held on for a minute. And stood there for a minute and kind of shook it off, tried again, same thing happened. And the third time, when I bounced back after the third time, I told my roommate, I said, I think I need you to take me to the emergency room. And told her why. And then she kind of freaked out, understandably so. And so she ended up taking me to the emergency room and went through the horrible experience of having my stomach pumped. I remember laying there before that, they were getting ready to start the IV and my arm had fallen off the table and it was just dangling there. And I was like looking at it going, I know that has to hurt. That's not the way that's supposed to be. Whatever. And just let it dangle there because I didn't have by then the medicine was kicking in and I just couldn't pick my arm up. But then they were like, we're gonna tie you down to pump your stomach. And I was like, please do not do that. I'm a sexual abuse survivor. I've been raped. Please do not do that. And I was begging and pleading with them and they did it anyway. So it was another traumatic experience on top of having your stomach pumped, which is a horrible experience that I don't ever recommend. And so, thankfully I ended up in ICU for a couple of days and things like that. But thankfully no permanent effects from that. And my mom yelled and screamed and cussed at me for being so selfish to do such a thing and things like that. And the doctor came in and heard that conversation and he just turned red and he said, I'm going to go hang up the phone. He hung up on her and he said, I'm going to go call her. And so he left the room. I could hear him yelling at her, not yelling, but like raised voice, like lecturing her. Do you realize how close your daughter just came to dying? Do not ever talk to her like that again about this. This is how you need to address her. This is how you need to approach it. Da, 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 da. And, so, I realized it scared my mom. So, but the way she didn't handle it in the best way either. So, yeah, it was a crazy experience.
But there was the doctors in the hospital that gave you a diagnosis that...
My diagnoses were major depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and dissociative identity disorder. And I went in and out of the hospital on the average of about every 6 weeks for a year and a half. And through that process, the counselor that I was working with had the office that she worked in had a psychiatrist and a bunch of other counselors and everything. And they would have meetings every week about their difficult clients. And I came up a lot in that conversation. And they told her, there's no hope for that one. Victoria is never going to be a contributing member of society. I was living in an assisted living apartment for people with mental illness. I was on disability. I had somebody else managing my money. I wasn't working. I had a team of people that would come in and make sure I had all the things that I needed to survive, made sure I get to appointments and all of that. And so the psychiatrists and the other therapists in the office were like, there's no hope for that one. She will never be a contributing member of society. She's going to come in, sit on your couch once or twice a week for the rest of her life. You're going to listen to her, you're going to pat her on the head, and she's going to go away, and she'll never amount to anything.
And yet there was one, I believe it was a nurse or someone that worked there that...
The counselor, my therapist.
Your therapist. There was a therapist there that she did not give up.
She said, God's got to be bigger than that.
Yes, I love that. And she is the one that helped find Freedom Encounters for you.
Yes. She went through training herself. She traveled out of state trying to get training, trying to figure out how to help me. She ended up doing a nationwide search, and she found Freedom Encounters.
That is so good. So I really want to get into that part. I loved your testimony, but can you explain exactly what Freedom Encounters is?
It's a deliverance ministry and inner healing. There are a lot of amazing ministries out there that do a lot of really good stuff. Freedom Encounters, however, is the most thorough ministry out there that I am aware of. I'm not saying it's the most thorough ministry in the whole wide world, because I don't know every ministry, but it is the most thorough ministry that I'm aware of. And Freedom Encounters will work well for anybody, because we all have what I call spiritual genetics. You know, the Bible talks about the sins of the father passed down to the third and fourth generation. We have physical genetics that are passed down through the generations. So I say we have spiritual genetics as well. Some good, some bad, just like physical, you know. And so Freedom Encounters deals with the spiritual genetics, and lots and lots of other things. So, the enemy's not going to, first of all, we don't know anything about our great grandparents, or our great grandparents. If we know their names, we're doing really good, but we don't know the things that they struggled with, the things that they battled with, the things that they faced. We don't know that. If we know that about our parents, we're doing really good. Our grandparents that would be amazing. But the further back the generations go, the less we know. So even if scripture says, okay, after the third or fourth generation, that has to go away, it doesn't necessarily have to go away, because the enemy will re-enter it in and you think you're the only person that's ever been through that. And that's not the case, because the enemy's not going to give up easily. His whole purpose is to kill, steal, and destroy the call of God on our lives and destroy us in the process. And so Freedom Encounters is for anybody, somebody that's grown up in a Christian home, and never went through abuse and seemingly had the perfect life. They still have spiritual genetics that would be good to go. And Freedom Encounters can also work with the very opposite extreme of severe satanic ritual abuse survivors, and everyone in between. So the ministry process it's a life-changing process. So the way the process is right now is you kind of go through the website, you read through some documents, you sign up for a seminar called Victory Over Spiritual Conflict. And that's a seminar that's kind of laying the foundation, getting you ready to go through your Freedom Encounter, because deliverance is not a quick fix. It's not a cure-all, end-all, be-all. It's a wiping clean of the slate. It's a new beginning. But through that process, you have to learn how, you have to do some inner healing. You have to learn how to do warfare to keep the freedom, because the Bible talks about the house being swept clean. If it's not kept clean, or if it's left empty, then the enemy will come back with 7 of his friends, which means it's going to be bigger, worse, stronger, and all of that. So Freedom Encounters does the deliverance process. And oh, by the way, it is no more exciting, no more, what's the word I'm looking for? No more theatrical than this. It's a very calm, very peaceful process, because people that need to go through this have already been through enough humiliation, have been through enough pain, have been through enough shame. We do not have to allow that to happen in a deliverance. It's dramatic, it's theatrical, but it's not necessary. And so I prefer it to be a calm, peaceful process. We have the authority to get through that and to make sure that happens. The other thing that Freedom Encounters does that's different is that, we know we're in the Lord's army, because that's what scripture says. If we're in an army, we know that there's an enemy that has an opposing army. And if we look at the military structure in the natural, we can kind of equate that to the spiritual. And so a lot of traditional deliverance, what they do is they go after a little cell, or maybe if they're doing really good, a big platoon, but they're still not getting the whole army. And Freedom Encounters gets the whole army and radically can radically change lives. Freedom Encounters, true altars, there's true altars and false altars. True altars are, an altar is an alternate personality that happens as a result of the trauma of things in the past and things like that. And so a true altar is a true part of the original person. If you imagine a coffee cup in the Victory Over Spiritual Conflict, they kind of explain it like this. They have a coffee cup in a Ziploc bag, and it's like, here's little Susie, and she goes to bed one night, and along comes Uncle So-and-so, who comes in and molests her, and they hit the cup with a hammer, and the glass shatters. Well, that's all those parts are still parts of the original whole. They're just now shattered and broken. Those are true altars. False altars are demons posing as altars, and those have to go away. But you can't cast out a true part of the person, and you can actually do a lot more trauma to that person if you're dealing with a true altar and trying to cast them out, telling them they're demons, telling them they're bad, telling them that they're horrible. They've already been traumatized enough. They don't need that. So it's about knowing how to separate the two, get rid of the false altars, help the true altars heal and integrate and go back where God originally designed them to be. And it's not something that I do. It's something that I can facilitate, but it's the Lord doing the cleansing and the healing process, and the individual allowing that to happen. And it's a beautiful, amazing, life-changing process. So, am I leaving anything out?
Well, I want to say that you went through the training
Yes.
20 years ago.
I went through my Freedom Encounter 22 years ago, and I did go through the training shortly after that. Yes. But
what did you prophesied something over yourself?
I did. When part of the Freedom Encounter is getting the call of God on your life, and when I got that call, it kind of freaked me out, and it freaked me out, and I was like, yeah, maybe in about 20 years.
20 years.
And so here I am 20 years later, being silent no more. This is my first time really stepping out and in an uncontrolled environment, putting my testimony out there. And it's all for the glory of God. If my story and the hell that I went through helps give somebody encouragement and give somebody hope for wholeness and for freedom, then all of that was worth it. And so now I have the honor and privilege of walking with people through that process, because one person said, my God has got to be bigger than that, and didn't give up on me and walked with me through my healing journey.
And I am one of those people that I met Victoria 2 years ago in a bind. And you shared your story with my husband and I, because Victoria is also part of my husband and myself. We have a prison ministry, and she is on our team. And she also shared her story with the men, and it really touched their hearts. But she told us of her experience, and she told us about Freedom Encounters. And she just recently started joined and brought a Freedom Encounters ministry part of that. She's a teammate, and I went through, saw the videos, went through the seminar. I was in a hurry. I was going to do it in 4 days, 13 and a half hours. I did it in 4 days. I wanted my freedom. And let me just say, she's exactly right. It's very honoring. When you go in there and deliverance, it's very honoring. It's not hard. I mean, it's not scary. That's the word I want to use, because people hear deliverance and they think scary. So it wasn't scary. But let me tell you, when I walked out of there, during my times of walking out of there, there was quiet. I had been given a word by someone from Bethel, said, God is going to get restart. That's what happened. Get restart. And now I've been walking it out these last month and a half. And every day there's more and more freedom. Yeah. All because what God called her to do. And I am one to say that this really does work. And
the Freedom Encounter, the deliverance, there's two pieces to it. The deliverance part, by the end of that first day, is done. You are free and clear of the demonic. But then there's the inner healing piece and the restoration process that begins, and the learning the warfare, so it's a discipleship program as well, because you're taught how to do the warfare, how to maintain and keep your freedom, because in so many deliverances they say, great, you're free. You walk away and you feel better, and an hour, a day, a week, a month later, you're like, I'm not free, and then you feel all full of shame because you're not where you need to be. This process, Freedom Encounters, helps walk you through that so you can maintain your freedom. And I have maintained my freedom for 22 years. I am not the person that I was all those years ago. It's completely different now. And now I get the privilege of walking with amazing people. And yes, we did get the ministry started, launched at my church. And really, I'm so honored and privileged by that, because there's a lot of people that want to come in and start a deliverance ministry. But not all deliverance ministries are created equal. They're not all on the same level. And it was a huge process of back and forth and questions and answers and how are we going to do this and that has gone on in allowing this ministry to launch. So while I'm sharing my testimony, Freedom Encounters is actually a worldwide ministry. So rather than talking all about my church and the ministry through my church, I am a teammate of Freedom Encounters. The website is on the screen, and or will be. I'm not sure. Sorry.
It's on freedomencounters.com.
Okay. And so anybody that's interested in receiving a Freedom Encounter, you can go to that website, go to the Desire Ministry page. You can start walking through those steps, and when you get to the point where you're ready to schedule your session, you can request a list of teammates from Ken and Sylvia Thornburg. And oh, by the way, if you reach out to them and they say, who's this Victoria Pierce? They know me by name 22 years later. I have been involved in the ministry and stayed connected with them all these years, but it's only been in the last couple of years that I'm actually stepping out and doing this and having the honor and privilege of building this up. So rather than making it focused on my church, because your audience is not just local, it's all over the place, and there's teammates all over the country, all over the world. And so I'm happy to, anybody in our area, if you start that process, if you know Kim, she can direct you kind of to me, or you can kind of go through and reach out, with the teammate lists and discover where you need to go and who you need to be connected with.
Yes. And it really is, they really do give you the tools
Mm-hmm.
to stay free. It takes work, but it's worth it, because you walk into such stepping into your authority, like you said. It's
Mm-hmm.
really helping you to understand, okay, there's a reason why I have to put my armor on, because I'm a
Mm-hmm.
warrior,
Right.
and you don't go out into a battle without your armor on. So it's really good. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be on this morning. It has been an absolute pleasure and privilege to have you on Porch Talk this morning.
Thank you for having me. I know, somebody, if people are interested in making a donation or whatever, if they want it to just go to Freedom Encounters, they can just go to freedomencounters.com. If they want it to go to me, maybe they can reach out to you, and go, direct, then you can freely give that information to those who want to have it go more directly to me. Is that fair?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because Victoria does her part of the ministry here locally. She does it on her own. So if you would, and we're going to post, it's on the background right now, freedomencounters.com, but I'll put it in the comments also. And if you get touched on your heart to donate to her, it would go to a wonderful ministry to help continue to bring freedom to others, because that's what Jesus paid the price for us to all be free. That's his heart.
Yes.
So, well, we're going to end in prayer, and then we're coming to the end of our porch talk. So, here, I'm just going to pray. Father God, I just thank you. I thank you for this morning. I thank you for the wonderful testimony of Victoria, and how, God, you brought her through, and
Yes.
how you totally, what the scripture says, you turn beauty from ashes, and that, God, she is just this beautiful, beautiful picture of what you're doing and in her life, and that through all the things that she went through, and you taking her to encounters and her becoming free, now she is turning around doing the same thing for others. And we thank you for that, God. We thank you for that opportunity. I thank you for that her testimony will speak to someone this morning, and
Yes.
that they will reach out and say, I want to be free, and take that step to go to Freedom Encounters, reach out to them, and start that process to step into their freedom. And
Yes.
Father, I just thank you, and for her ministry. And I pray that, God, that you will open up the windows of heaven and bring provision, all the provision she needs, God. I pray that you will pour out blessings that she will not be able to contain. And I thank you that, God, that you said you supply all of our needs. And I thank you that everyone, I'm declaring that over her, her finances, everything that you are supplying, you will supply everything she needs, that she will not have to want for anything, God. And we thank you, Father, for your goodness and who you are. In
Thank you.
the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Will you have a wonderful weekend, and thanks again for being on Porch Talk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Was that amazing? I just loved it. I love Victoria. I love her heart. We met her, like I said, just getting to know her being part of the prison team. And my husband and I just love her. She's our daughter. And so I'm so grateful for her and what she and her heart to seek to help people find freedom. Well, before we end, I want to talk just a couple seconds about Bless Montgomery County. Danielle's not here, but Danielle's kind of been talking a little bit about Bless Montgomery County. And I just want you to know it starts next Friday night, and is the worship and prayer service. And Saturday is the actual event at Lone Star Fairground. And then there's some transformation night going on that night. So you can go on Facebook, look up Bless Montgomery County, and you're not going to want to miss that. I am just so excited about the upcoming Porch Talks. And Danielle, we miss you this morning, and we just pray that you come back refreshed and renewed. And so for another Porch Talk, we thank you for joining us, and we love you. Bye-bye.